All right, what's going on, everyone? This is Real Sales Talk. Boom!
Hey.
This is episode, yeah, this is season 2, episode 7, and we are going to be talking about the new Always Be Closing. For those of you that have seen Glenn Ross, and know that scene, we're going to be talking about the new Always Be Closing. Now, we were going to have a guest on, Kevin Carner from Drift, but he unfortunately had a last-minute change in his schedule and won't be joining us, but you get us, Henry and Sean. Henry, how are you doing today?
Life is good, my friend. Life is good. A lot of moving parts in the life of Henry Johnson, but all good things. How are you, Sean?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just trying to think through, like, what's been happening. I threw my not threw the towel in. I threw my hat in. For are you familiar with Amy Schmidauer on social? She's her brand is Sexy Savvy Social.
I've heard of it. Yeah,
so she does. Okay, cool. So she does this thing where it's a vlog every day in August. So she challenges anyone who wants to participate to do a video vlog. A vlog is a video log, but do a video a day. It could be about whatever. And she actually, if you sign up for it, she sends you an email and you get access to a calendar with topics for each of the 31 days in August. So I'm on day 2 of this vlog every day thing. So I wanted to really challenge myself. I'm pretty consistent with doing video, but I really wanted to push myself to get into the habit of doing a short video each day. So, but doing that, and that's been really, really cool. Today's topic was about getting. And in fact, I did a little snap story on this yesterday, but getting to the point where you can ask someone early on in the conversation, like a lead or a potential customer, early on in the conversation, asking that person if your product or service is a must-have or a nice-to-have. If it's a nice-to-have, then you really know, okay, let's put this conversation on hold till it's the right time, till it's a must-have. If they say it's a must-have, then you ask, why is it a must-have? And then you uncover the motivation, the really internal driver as to why they're looking into your product, and then you can use that at any point in the conversation. So well, you told me earlier in the beginning. What was that?
Sorry, I said that was that today's, because I've been seeing you stepping it up in terms of the video.
So yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah. So today's vlog was about really determining what's the urgency. Is this something that you need to do right this moment, or that you're just kind of you're a looky-loo. You're casually looking into it, not really serious about it. Is there some sort of driver or motivation? So that was kind of the topic. It was like a 2.5-minute video. So it's up on YouTube for those that follow my YouTube channel. So that's what's going on. That was like.
So I have a question for you, because I've been thinking a little about this. How do you decide what to make a YouTube video versus like a Snapstorm?
Yep. Sometimes they're the same. Of course, that Snapchat. So, and I think at this very moment, I have a different audience on Snapchat than I do YouTube. I've got some videos up on YouTube, and I sort of feel like I'm like Gary Vaynerchuk in. Is it breaking up pretty bad? So Yeah, so I think the audience is different. I feel like Gary Vaynerchuk in the Wine Library days, where it was like the first 100 episodes were like, 1 view, 2 view, 3 view. So sometimes I use the same topics. In many cases, I do. Can you hear me okay?
How's my audio? You're breaking up pretty good.
It's great. It's crystal clear. So yeah, you're fine. Is mine still breaking up?
Yeah. I heard you saying you were something like Gary Vaynerchuk. I believe you're saying something about Wine Library, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like my YouTube page really doesn't have a lot of views, and so I feel like I'm Wine Library Gary Vaynerchuk days, where the first 100 episodes is no one's watching it, and then you start picking up momentum. So um, what I do is I kind of keep my eyes and my ears open during the day when I'm in the sales seat, for something that would be interesting to share, a lesson learned, an interesting conversation or something like that.
Gotcha.
So,
awesome.
well, so
hey, well, that kind of
got,
brings me maybe to a little bit about the conversation we wanted to have today. I mean,
yeah, go for it.
So I mean, because just like you, right? All day, every day, I'm trying to continue to improve in terms of my sales, in terms of my process around business. And I read this article. It had to be at least a month ago, if not more. Probably more, because we scheduled the interview with Kevin about a month ago. But it was by his company, Drift, and it was titled "Why the Future of Sales Looks a Lot Less Salesy." And it really stood out to me because it pretty much goes the exact opposite of a lot of what I've been told throughout my sales career, right? Which is, qualify hard, essentially always be holding a little bit. It's a give and take of sales, right? Like you hold back a bit in terms of maybe the POC or the demo or pricing until the customer kind of proves qualified for that, right? So maybe I'm not going to just give you a POC to do unless you're going to get some kind of management involved, or let's not move forward to a demo unless you're going to get, to another one of your peers or maybe even your manager involved. That's kind of the way I've approached it throughout my life, right? But this talks a lot about that's not how we buy anymore, right? And it resonated with me because, at least personally, as a consumer in my day-to-day, it's true. It's not how I buy. Like if I go to the Apple store and I saw the laptop sitting out, I was like, yeah, I want to check out a Microsoft, Air, MacBook Air. And they were like, all right, well, let me get your name, number, blah, blah, blah. But no, like, leave me alone. Like, I just want to play with the Mac, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the Drift is talking about. Is their take is they want to sell the way people want to buy. So let them play with the software literally as much as they want, and then you help them buy it in the process. Which I agree with, help buy, but I'm trying to learn more about this new idea, and that's what I was really interested in talking to Kevin about. But I'd love your thoughts on that, and how you maybe you approach your sales that way today. Maybe you don't, but how do you kind of think about it moving forward?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I do hear a lot of older, like older generations talk about how you need to, for example, I heard this recently. Don't talk about pricing until you get to the very end. Like hold pricing until the very end. And I think in general, like this is something that I really have been trying to challenge myself on, because I think that this is really how I think what Gary Vaynerchuk subscribes to, which is do whatever is in the best interest of the customer, right? Serve the customer, do what's in the best interest of the customer. What I think is an interesting thought, after contemplating that statement, is sometimes the buyer doesn't know what's best for themselves. Think about the doctor-patient relationship, right? Patient does a lot of research online, and maybe they determine that they've got a tumor, or maybe that's a bad example. But maybe they determine that they've got a brain cancer or something like that because of some symptoms. They go to the doctor, and the doctor does some CAT scans or whatever, reviews the stuff and says, the good news is you don't have brain cancer. You actually have this. And I think there are situations, I think first and foremost, you should always do what's in the best interest of the customer. Serve the customer, help the customer out. And, in the title of this particular show for Real Sales Talk, it's, the new always be closing is always be teaching. And so I think you can do a lot of selling by educating, by serving by teaching, serving by educating. There are some instances, I think, where you have to, where the customer may want something, but it may not be in the best interest of the customer because it doesn't allow for full context if you give a piece of information. That I think is an interesting thought. Like, I've been processing through that.
Can
like
dive into that a little more. Give me an example of that. What do you mean it doesn't allow for full context if you give everything?
So here's a perfect example. You get a new lead on the phone, and they're excited about they're excited about the product, and they're like, I know I want this. What's the price? What's it cost? Now, one part of me could say, well, hold on a minute. Let's wait till we cover some other things. The other part of me could think, pricing is such and such. But then they may think, without building the value, without them understanding everything that maybe the product or the service does, they may think it's too expensive. So does that kind of help add some color to what I'm talking about? Like, if you get priced too early, sometimes you haven't built enough understanding and value, and they could just be judging the product off of price, which is a bad way to look at it. Like, if you really understand what the value is, then in many cases, if you were to give a pricing ahead of time, early on versus later, you might have a better chance of earning that person's business, because understanding value allows someone to say, wow, this is much more than I thought it was. I need to find the money to make this happen. Yeah,
because if you give it too early, they may be just comparing you to an inferior product anyway. Because that's typically why they're asking, right? But sorry, I'll let you keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt. Just trying.
No. I think I finished my thought there. Like, it's just, I think in many cases, like, I think you always want to educate and you always want to sell by serving, but especially when you get into the sales call where they've raised their hand and said, I want to learn more, you then get into that doctor-patient relationship where you have to understand what's happening. You have to understand the symptoms. And then once you've done a good job at trying to understand the symptoms, then you can diagnose.
Yeah. So, at your company, do you guys do any type of like free trial of the software or proof of concept or anything of that nature?
No, not right now. No.
So how do you educate, like, can you walk me through like your sales cycle of how it works?
Yeah. So here's what I would do if I was running my own business. I'll come at it from that angle.
Okay.
If I was running my own business, Well, I mean, I think what I'm doing right now is exactly how I would run my own. I mean, I guess I really am running my own. I'm running my own brand right now. So I would create content centered around the types of people or buyers that I would want to attract. Allow them to self-discover and learn about whatever it is that I'm trying to, put out there. In this case, if you go to SeanMMitchell.com, you're going to find a lot of articles on sales, on sales technique. And right now I'm talking a lot about Snapchat for salespeople. And so for my own personal brand, I want to attract other salespeople that are interested in learning, and I want to build a community. I mean, the real sales talk thing, that we've started together is another one of those things that allows people to buy into what we're doing. And then when they want help, when it's a company that wants consulting work, they can approach us and say, hey, I've been watching your show for 6 months now, and I absolutely love it. And I think the stuff that you're sharing is stuff that our sales team needs to hear. What do you charge for, what do you charge for consulting work? So if I was running my own business, I would create content. I would put the content out there and allow people to consume and buy in that way. Teach, always be teaching, like the title of this particular episode. And allow people to buy into it, and then they've essentially qualified themselves. So when they reach out to you, they know.
So when they reached out and said, "So I want to hire you for consulting. What do you charge?" It's just okay.
That's when I would go into the sales process. That's when I would go into the talk to me a little bit more about
Gotcha. Okay.
What's your team like? What dynamics are there? What sort of things are they challenged with right now? So then you start to understand the symptoms, and then diagnose once you feel like you've understood what they're trying to get at. And because maybe not so much for a SaaS product, a software as a service. Like a software as a service pricing is usually pretty set, usually has a trial, and there's a formula to typical SaaS companies. I don't think the company that I work for right now follows a typical SaaS formula. So that's why I didn't answer directly for the company that I work for right now. But
I think that may be what drifted and Kevin and his team were more writing to, right? Is like if you are so I think about like my father's business when I read this, right? He does home theaters, home automation, that kind of stuff. There's no real way to do a trial. I mean, you can check out how it works if you go into like a showroom where you can listen to it and hear it, but nobody's going to come install the speakers and the TV and everything into your house and then like, all right, like just try it out as long as you want and call me if you want to pay. It's not ever going to work like that. So I guess it only applies in that space of software, but then I guess it also applies in the showroom space. If like, for example, Apple, Microsoft is now doing it, in that you don't have to talk to a salesperson to try out the product. You can just try it out, and people who are qualified will then come to you and ask as a salesperson. So as a salesperson, you go to them and say, hey, do you want to learn anything more? Like, have you checked this out, check out this out? But you're not saying, hey, you can't touch this until you tell me this.
Yeah. Let's go down that road a little further, because something came to my mind as you were talking about that. And let's just talk a little heresy here, sales heresy. Do you think, in your opinion, Henry, that a company can be successful without salespeople?
Wow. So I've thought about this before. Yeah. I've thought about it. And you know what? My opinion on it is constantly evolving.
Yep.
Because there was a point in time when I first like found out about HubSpot and like inbound sales and all that, and I was like, you know what, like a lot of companies may not need a salesperson, right? And I'm not completely off of that. But what I've learned now is I think it has a lot to do with what is the goal of the company, right? If you don't have goals of like exponential growth, I mean, so all right, wrong. All right, the beginning part's wrong. You need a salesperson, right? That at least one, and that may just be the founder, the CEO, who's actually closing business, because there's always somebody who's kind of selling the product, unless of course it's just you purchase online and all you're doing is online marketing for it and things like that. But if you're selling any type of product where they need to, there's any type of complications to the product, you need at least one salesperson being the founder CEO. You can use things like online marketing, inbound marketing, etc., to get them there. But then if they need to talk to anybody, then you need at least that salesperson who could be the founder or whatever, or you can have a salesperson. But you could also run a business that's like I'm trying to think of one, but any e-commerce website, right? Like they don't have salespeople for those websites, but they still do a ton of sales. Obviously, different businesses than typically the people who are watching this show, but yes, not every business needs a salesperson, but I'd say largely, yeah, a lot do.
You want to know my thoughts?
Yes, please.
Because I've been thinking about this as well. So, so the company that came to mind that does not have any salespeople as of, let's see when this article was written.
I think I know which company you're going to talk about.
I think you know too. As of March 16th, Slack, the software company, does not have any salespeople. Company valued at $4 billion. And for those that don't know what Slack is, it's like internal business communication. I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be, inside of one business, but that's kind of, I think, how it's designed. So it's like instant message. It's like chat, IM. It's video chat. It's kind of all of these things kind of combined into one. And I think they want to do away with email. That's kind of their goal. And so you can have like different discussions going on, different groups where different parts of the company are communicating with each other. You can also do video conferences as well. So it's a lot of things combined into one. And I think it's interesting. I think the right types of salespeople with the right consultative approach, the non-salesy approach, kind of like what we're talking about tonight, can expedite the growth. Now, sometimes, and I've worked for companies like this before, where the salespeople are overcompensating for a poorly designed user experience of a software. And so you need salespeople to compensate for the not so intuitive software. I've seen this a lot. Of experience as a user. You're like, where do I go? What do I do? It doesn't make sense to me. I need someone. Call a salesperson. That sort of thing. I think it should. Like in a perfect world, you create a product that is so intuitive, like the Apple computer. You just turn on the power button and it just works. It just works. You don't have to think about it. Or, I'm trying to think of another example, like when what's that one app that was really popular that Instagram made, where you hyperlapse. Yeah, hyperlapse. Allowed you to create video, and it would stabilize the video, and it would also allow you to do some other functions. And it was just so simple. Like you knew how to use it within 2 seconds, like that. If you build out a quality product like that, maybe you don't need a salesperson. Now, so I'll stop there. Any comments?
Yeah. So Yes. So I agree with you, right? I think the awesome thing about the world that we live in right now is that the products are so much better than they ever have been in the history of the world, right? Because there's so many more people building them that cream's rising to the crop. Cream rises to the top even more. And then therefore there's even the top is that much better, right? So you do have things like Slack, you have things like Apple, where there's not really salespeople, they're just helpers in a way, right? That being said, even companies like Slack, like that had no salespeople, and I forgot the date that you said up until they had no salespeople. If you go to their website now, they are hiring sales.
Are they really?
They're hiring account executives at Slack
Nice.
right now, New York, San Francisco, and many other places. And the reason is because in the same way that you see Slack now doing ads on TV, is that they're starting to reach a critical mass of like the easy come, right? Like the people who are going to get on Slack just because they're Slack, right? They've gotten the people who are going to buy Slack just because Slack's now a $4 billion company, and man, there must be something there. I'm going to buy it. So now what they need is somebody who's going to look at that install base of maybe it's free users, right? Maybe it's people using Slack for free right now, and say, okay, there are 20 people or 50 people at Zerto using Slack, but because we didn't have a salesperson before, there was nobody to call this person, the person who looks like the manager and say, all of your direct reports are using Slack. For $8 a month, you can get this, and this, right? And I think that's where they're at now, is that they've gotten to a point they need salespeople, and that's what I talk about in terms of where do you want to scale to is what matters, because you can get to a certain mass, 4 billion, right? I mean, for most people that's good enough, right? You can get to a certain point without sales, and that point is all dependent on how good your product is, product market fit, timing, et cetera, marketing, all that. But I do think there's always a spot where you almost need to get into a salesperson, unless you're just an e-commerce website like Amazon, not AWS, just the Amazon product, right? So, or any other e-commerce website.
Yeah, true. And I kind of had the suspicion that
that Slack would eventually have to hire salespeople for that reason. But I also think, like, for the more complex sales cycle, that that need additional things, additional help, additional steps when you're bringing on an enterprise deal. It's more than just maybe it doesn't have to be, but it's more than just a click of a button to buy. It's integration with a back end of a system or something like that, and sometimes the technical person is not the best person to do that, because just like what we were talking about on Sunday night with Mike Weinberg, technical people like to kind of show off their knowledge and talk too much instead of listen and ask questions. So I could see for the technical sale and for the enterprise sale where it would be a lot more difficult for there not to be any salespeople. And to your point as well, like sometimes people don't know they want to buy something until someone reaches out to them and asks them, hey, would you like to buy this? Because if you do, you're using the free version right now, but if you pay just $8 more, you're going to get 10 times the value out of the product.
And or maybe they even knew they wanted to buy it, but you got busy, right? I mean, I've taken over patches from people many a times, right? Where, maybe if somebody got fired, somebody quit, whatever the case may be, and I had to take over their opportunities. You look at some of their opportunities and it's like commit deal for, 2 months out. It's like, I'm going to call this guy now and ask why. And the guy goes, oh, no real reason. Like, I'll buy it now. I'm like, thank you. and I'm not exaggerating. That's happened to me like countless times where you call into the guy and they go, yeah, I do want to buy it, and you just go, all right, so why haven't you bought it? And they go, well, I don't really have a reason. Like, all right, well, why don't you buy it now? Like, all right, yeah, I'll send my guy an order. I'm like, what was the other sales guy doing? Like that's literally my quest. Like it's like this guy's a idiot. Like I mean, I don't want to call him an idiot, but like that was the easiest sale I've ever made in my life because I didn't do anything, and it's happened multiple times. So I think that there are, and I've been victim of that in where I've gotten a bill for something, and it's sat on my coffee table for 3 weeks, and maybe I even got another bill for it, and I'm like, you just don't think about it. It's just not top of your mind, and then all of a sudden you get a call from the orders department, and like, hey, like you want to pay for that? Oh yeah, here, I'll pay for you right now. And sometimes that's I mean I don't know if you call that sales because that person's really just an order collector. I don't know what you want to call them, but that is important sometimes, and just keeping top of mind. And if you don't have any type of push to that, you're going to miss out a lot of sales. Whether you need those sales or not, we can talk about what your goals are as a company, but you're definitely missing out on revenue. So
it's attention and it's mind share. And the value of the salesperson is the ability to gain someone's attention and mind share. And whether that's picking up the phone and calling on that, that opportunity that was 2 months out to close, and calling them now and asking for the sale, or whether it's, putting out great content, building attention and mind share, and then, following up and asking for the sale there. I think that the value, this is really good. This is really, really good. Like this thought right here is going to be a really good takeaway. The value of a salesperson is to create attention and mind share, because if you have that, then you've got the ability then to ask. If you don't have their attention, then they're not paying attention, and they're not listening to what you have to say. So I think that's really
Have you ever
key.
heard the acronym AIDA?
Yes.
Attention, interest, decision, action. That's literally the sales cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think a lot of people forget is that although and I think the smaller a business is, the less they separate these two, but the bigger businesses, the more it gets separated, is that marketing and sales are one. Mm-hmm. They almost shouldn't be. I mean, they almost shouldn't be two. Maybe they can be two separate departments, but they should be under one person, right? They're revenue. Like you see a lot of companies now having chief revenue officers instead of like a CMO and a VP of sales, because at the end of the day, when you separate those, you create a clash on the revenue side that does not need to exist, right? Because marketing is creating that attention. Without marketing, you cannot get people to making the decision. You can't. I mean, what happens is, like, it's all funnel, right? So if your funnel is this small up here, it's that small down here, and then you get to the point where you're trying to squeeze everything you can out of these few customers that may not even be real, the best type of people to be focusing on. But if your funnel's like this and you've got all these customers, it's like, I don't need to force these people to make decisions. I can be a better salesperson to them. I can be a better teacher to them, right? And then allow them to purchase on their time frame, right? And that kind of goes to, and maybe some of these people just need more mind share. They need more mind share throughout the company. So you talk to, maybe you're only talking to one person who's in, but through talking to them more, that there's 3 other people around them that need to learn more. So maybe you need to talk to that person about getting those people in the room, or maybe you need to, send those people emails and tell them, go talk to Tom, who you've been working with forever. But I think it's hugely important to understand that content that you talk about, like building that content, is a part of being able to get sales done. Whether that's you building the content or your marketing department building the content, but it's all a part of the sale happening. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I want to I want to throw out another thought to you because I've been also giving a lot of thought to this. So like, it's just interesting how this kind of topic has come about, and how, you know, tonight has kind of had a kind of come about with us, you know, driving this idea, and Kevin not being able to make it. But by the way, I miss this. Like, I miss the back and forth banter. When we have guests, it's great because we get different opinion. But this sort of stuff excites me as well. Like, I if you were to snapshot this and snapshot some of the others, you know, in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, what's going to be the next question I'm going to ask, and, you know, how am I going to ask it? And this is a lot more off the cuff. I miss it. I miss you, Henry. I just miss you.
we'll do some more of this. We'll keep it going.
For sure. So my thought is, you know, a couple of weeks, a week and a half ago, I was in San Francisco, you know, for Sales 2.0 conference. And one of the themes that I kind of took away with was this emergence of artificial intelligence and machine learning in the sales environment. So you have these softwares that are thinking for the salesperson and intelligently communicating with prospects. Even like, there's a company called Conversica, which I used, which my previous company used. Conversica.
Okay.
Like converse and then Ica. So it's actually a personality. It's a sales assistant that will reach out and follow up with sales leads. In fact, they put me into a follow-up campaign after I attended that, and I had this. I knew it was an artificial intelligence sales assistant because I've used them before, and so interacting back and forth, and, you know, following up, and but that sort of stuff is going to get smarter and smarter, and the same thing with Spiro as well. Artificial intelligence is helping right now assist salespeople do deals faster, you know, use salespeople's time more efficiently. The question that I want to pose is, do you think artificial intelligence 5 years from now, or let's say 10 years from now, is smarter and better than salespeople and could replace salespeople?
It's going to be interesting, right? I won't say it will replace all. It won't replace all salespeople, but it will, because it will make salespeople so much more efficient. It will therefore replace some, right? Because what you see a lot of is, when a sales team's not hitting their number, they hire more salespeople to try to get more people to do the job. It's not that you need more salespeople; you just need a better salesperson, right? Yeah. Typically, a more efficient, more effective salesperson, and I think that's what, you know, AI is going to do, and it's what it's doing in a lot of industries, right? If you go to CVS today, you don't call it we don't call the cashier thing artificial intelligence anymore, but when those things came out, the fact that you could scan and then check out, like, that was like machine learning. That was intelligent. People were probably freaking out. I don't remember it, but like, I'm pretty sure of it. And it always happens that way, right? So that's going to happen in sales too, is that people are going to start to become more efficient by using these tools, being able to do the job of two salespeople in one because of these tools. And therefore, instead of hiring two salespeople, you hire one salesperson who's efficient with these tools, right? In the same way that you hire one cashier now at CVS instead of 8, right? So
here's the thing.
That's what I think. I think it's a good idea.
Here's the thing that I think about salespeople. I think that great ones are really good at reading between the lines and reading body language and emotion and tone. That sort of thing, computers don't understand yet, right? You know, let's say you take the statement, "I don't want to buy now," and you could say that like 3 different ways. I don't want to buy now, or I don't want to buy now, right? And the tone dictates what that person means. And so I think it's going to be a while before computers can understand those nonverbal cues. You know, like computers right now can read text, and they can they can dictate things if you tell it something. But learning emotion and tone, I think it'll be a while before before a computer can get that good at something like that. So where I see salespeople, and to try and bring this back to the original topic, where I see great salespeople really providing value in the sales process in this new world, it's understanding, providing empathy, asking good questions, being of assistance, and providing value. You know, always be teaching, always be helping. That's the sort of thing that I think, you know, I think is going to make great salespeople stand out from mediocre or bad salespeople. You know, the always be always be closing salespeople are you like, even that movie clip in the Glenn Ross, it was like the worst typical, like the worst salesperson, you know, that doesn't listen to people, that just is all about making the sale. That's really what always be closing. That's the context of always be closing. But the new way to do it is to always be listening, always be teaching, always be providing value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's coming, man, and I'm looking forward to watching the progression of what sales becomes over the next few years, because as we're seeing with, you know, you seeing it at the top of the funnel with marketing and it with technology, right? With things like HubSpot, with things like Drift, with things like Marketo, et cetera, et cetera. And now it's moving its way down into the funnel with things like Spiro, Pattern, and many others. So a lot's coming. I think it's going to be interesting. And we will wait and see, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
The future of sales.
Yeah, the future of sales is all about putting the customer first. I mean, that's kind of how I would summarize it. The topic. Would you add any other insights?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's all about just putting the customer first. And the other insight I think is be empathetic to yourself when you're selling, right? And what I mean by that is think about how you would want a salesperson to treat you, and try to treat your customers that way, right? Because I think there's a gentle line or a thin line between the holding a POC back from somebody or holding a trial license back from somebody and just giving them away to everybody, right? Because and I'll close on this because I know we're about to run out of time, but I think I do, like, if I ask a salesperson, like, hey, I just want to mess around with this. Yeah, I want to drive the Tesla around for, 3 weeks. Like, the salesperson should say no to that, right? And or I want to go to a test drive, right? Like, yeah, like, okay, we can go to a test drive, but like, let's make sure it makes sense. Why do you want a Tesla? Maybe you have to ask the question strategically so that it makes sense in the conversation. Rather than like, oh, you want to test drive a Tesla? Here's the keys. Go ahead. See you in a minute. Right? There has to be some kind of balance between holding them back and allowing them to evaluate your product. So
right, yeah, it's back to that analogy of the doctor patient. Like, patient comes in and says, I've got cancer. I need to go through chemotherapy. Well, the doctor says, hold on a second. Let's go through some tests and just make sure. And then you may be preventing someone from going through something unnecessarily that may not be in their best interest. So sometimes the buyer thinks that they know best, but you're the professional and you have to use your best judgment and decide, is this the best time to cover that topic, or should it be tabled? And pricing is just one of them. Until they understand the value, until you understand their drive and their motivation, something like pricing is usually best to withhold. In many circumstances, I would say.
Agreed.
Cool. So
at least final pricing.
Yeah,
I'll give you a list, but you're not getting final.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So
cool.
We're going to wrap up here. I want to mention a couple of things. For those that are listening, it would mean the world to us if you went on iTunes and wrote a review. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 reviews right now. I haven't checked recently in the last week and a half, but if you're liking what we're doing here, write a review and tell us what you think. And it can be bad, I suppose. Just tell us what you think. But if you're especially if you're loving it, please write a review. This will be up if you're watching this on video. This is also up on iTunes, Podcast, Stitcher, and Google Play, so you can listen to this in your car. And you don't have to necessarily watch the video, but this is also on video on YouTube, so you can go search Real Sales Talk. Our next Real Sales Talk is going to be episode 8. Henry, who do you know? Take a wild guess as to who we're going to have on the show. Looks like Henry's kind of frozen. Well, I'm going to tell you. I think you're speechless. You have no clue. So next episode, episode 8, is going to be on Monday, August 8th at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we are going to have the one and only Jim Keenan. He's the CEO of A Sales Guy. He's a sales consultant and a sales trainer. There we go. You're back now. I can see you moving. You froze for a moment.
That's weird.
And so we're going to have him on August 8th. It's going to be a Monday, so not our normal time. But Monday, August 8th at 9 p.m. Eastern. So the topic is going to be, here's the topic that we came up with: reinvent or be unemployed, why the modern salesperson must evolve. It's kind of similar to what we're talking about right now, but we're going to get hear from Keenan, the one and only Keenan. So should be a good one. Henry, any closing thoughts? Any final thoughts before we stop the broadcast?
Just keep improving, man. I think that's the important thing here, right? This conversation all came from me reading the blog post. We had first started talking about Sean doing, his YouTube channel and everything. And I think that's the most important thing, that, sales is always, evolving. Everything's evolving in terms of, what we're doing in business. So just make sure you're evolving with it. Don't become a fossil.
Yep. Cool. On that note, we will see you next Monday with Keenan. Have a great night, everyone.